Hi everyone, welcome to this week's video. We're going to be working with flowcharts and pseudocode today. So a couple announcements before we start. Your next assignment on advanced HTML is going to be due this Friday. You have a quiz this week on networks and HTML. That's also due at the end of the week. And for homework, I would like you to download VS Code. So next week, we're going to be starting working with JavaScript. Today's going to be like the intro to that. So for JavaScript, Visual Studio Code is better to work with, so if you don't already use that, I would like you to download that. And I just want to reference the next assignment that you're going to be doing is due this Friday. If you haven't already started, this is kind of like what it's supposed to look like. This should be, the home page and then the different other pages. It's similar to the last times, but you're going to be working with more styling. So please make sure to read the instructions carefully. Make sure you have images included in your zip file when you submit, or else you're going to get points taken off. And the color scheme, it's going to be different. It also says that on the assignment page, so make sure you pay attention to that. I don't want to see the same greens. Maybe do blues, yellows, pinks, whatever other color scheme you want. And have that done. And I just wanted to, do a little review on the next assignment, that's all. Okay, so now that's done, we can get started. Okay, so flowcharts. So we're going to be starting JavaScript very soon. So before actually starting a programming language, especially when it's your first one, we start learning about how to build the different steps of a process. So before we start pseudocode, we're starting flowcharts. Flowcharts is very simple. It's basically a bunch of shapes that you put together to show a process, and these shapes matter. So the oval is going to be the start or the end of a process. The arrows are connecting the different shapes together. The input-output is going to be this parallelogram. So any values that you are reading in are going to be put in this little shape. The actual process that's happening is going to go in the rectangle. And the decision, like let's say you're choosing between a red apple or a green apple, you're going to put that in here. And you're going to have a connector. This is just like when you have different outputs from a couple different places, you can all connect them in one place, and you just put a little circle to represent that. Okay. Pseudocode. So pseudocode is like step one of learning how to code. It's like if you can understand pseudocode, you are 70% there on your way to actually code. It's basically an algorithm that you get from a flowchart, and it's the pseudocode will become a computer program by using the appropriate syntax of a programming language. So essentially you are coding by writing pseudocode, but the actual words itself, like an if statement or something like that, that's going to be in the code. Pseudocode is like just a easier, quicker way to represent that. Okay. So to set up your flowcharts, we're going to be using draw.io, that software. If you're using a different software, probably some more advanced or cooler one, probably like Miro or something like that, feel free to do so. Just make sure you can submit in a .xml format. Okay, so let's go to draw.io. Okay, so it might ask you to make an account or sign in. Because I already have one, it's coming straight up to this page. I'm going to press create new diagram, and you have a bunch of options. We're going to do flowchart, so you can press flowchart, and let's title it recitation example. Create. Yes, use root folder. So mine is connected to my Google Drive. So all of mine are going to be saved there. You can also choose to upload to your computer. So once that loads, it's going to give me a sample flowchart. I'm not going to be using this, so let's just delete that. And before I started, I already went ahead and created a couple of resources that we could use. So this right here. Instead of just making each shape on my own, I just made it and put it to the side. copy. Okay, so I guess it copied everything. I don't want this right now. So this is the answers to what we're going to be doing today. Just delete that. I just want to show you the resources. So to create these circles and parallelograms and shapes, you can go over here to the side. So you can use this ellipse or oval, this rectangle, parallelogram, diamond, and circle. So like I explained, these are what we're going to use to make our flowchart. Okay, so once you're here, you don't have to have these resources like me. It's up to you if you want to create each individual circle on its own or just copy paste. Let's get rid of this. And once you have your file set up, we're going to solve this practice problem. A company needs to calculate the taxes that it needs to pay for its last year earnings. The earnings are the difference between the revenues and the expenses. The tax rate is 20% if the earnings are less than $500,000. Otherwise, the tax rate is 30%. Create the flowchart and write the pseudocode. So for this first question, I have steps listed out. The next couple problems, I'm just going to have the answers and I'm just going to kind of explain through the whole thing. But we'll go slow for this one. Okay, so we're going to insert a start symbol at the top of the flowchart. Anytime you're starting a flowchart, the two main things you can't go wrong with are the start and the stop. So let's put our start. So we got a start button or start process, and we're going to have an arrow to the next one. So you can just click on an arrow and put one right there. So now after the start, according to the problem, they said they have to calculate the revenues and expenses and the difference between those two. So to do that, first we have to read the revenues value and the expenses value. So we're going to have another shape. Does anyone know what kind of shape? I'll give you a second to think about it. So since it's an input symbol for revenues and expenses, it's going to be this parallelogram. So you're going to put a revenues and an expenses here and draw an arrow to each. So I already have it created here. So I'm just going to copy paste. Hopefully it lets me copy. Okay. And now we also copy the appropriate arrow. So now once we read in the values of the revenues and the expenses, next what do we do? We got to insert a process symbol below and place the words calculate earnings inside. So since we're calculating something and that's like a computation, we're going to be doing a process. Calculate earnings. So just to review, I am copy pasting from the answers I already created just so it's faster. You could, if you already have these resources next to you, you could just copy paste and rename them as well. Okay, so now once you calculate the earnings, next we're going to insert a decision symbol and you're going to put the question earnings less than 500K. That's a question. So if your earnings are less than 500K, you're going to have either a yes or a no. Your decision shape will always have a yes or a no. If it's a yes, ignore that one. If it's a yes, add a process symbol. Taxes is equal to earnings times 20%. If it's a no, taxes is equal to earnings times 30%. We're going to have two different branches. So it's going to be like the diamond, and that's going to branch out yes or no. It's going to look something like this. Okay, so once you have that all set up, you can have this arrow by using this arrow right here. It's a connector with a label. There's also different types. We can get 2 labels, 3 labels, a symbol, but for now we only need the connector with the label. Now let's say the earnings are less than 500K. Then what do? We're gonna put the amount of taxes that that person gets. You're gonna get less tax if you earn less than 500K, and more tax if you earn more than 500K. Okay, so once you have that, now you kind of have the taxes ready, but now how do you display the output? How do you finish the process? So to do that, we're going to put an output symbol with the text display taxes on it. So an output symbol would be the same as the input symbol, would be the parallelogram. And to do that, first you have to connect it first. So it doesn't matter which way you're coming from, you got to display the taxes at the end. So we're going to put in a connector symbol like this. And we're going to just draw an arrow to it. Okay, and once you do that, you're going to put an arrow down here and you're going to press display taxes. Okay, once you display the taxes, you're basically done with the process. And to stop the process, you put an arrow and you press stop. And that is the end of this. So at the end, you should have something like this to display your flowchart. And we're going to take this flowchart and we're going to turn it into pseudocode. And this file, or actually this answer.draw.io file, is already posted on Canvas, right where you find the slides. Okay, so once you have the flowchart done, you're going to want to save it as a XML file. And to do that, you can make sure first everything's saved and press Command S if you're on a computer. Then you're going to go to File. You can also press Save here. You can press Export as XML. Press Export. You can name it whatever you want. You can place it in whichever folder you want, and you press OK. And then you'll find that in your, let's say if you download it into your downloads folder, it'll show up there. I had it and then I moved it to my recitation 5 folder. And then to bring it back up again, let's say you submitted but you want to change it or something, you can go back to draw.io, you're going to press Open Existing Diagram. And if your file is saved in your Google Drive, it'll show up there. If not, you can go to Upload and then select a file from your device. And then you select it there, and then it'll open up again. So just make sure you know how to do this for the assignment. So the attendance year code is going to be the word money. So using that, we're going to make a pseudocode. So to make the pseudocode, first you're going to find the pseudocode reference sheet. This guide is already posted in the same place. And there's some main keywords you need to memorize. It's going to be read, display, set, compute, add, subtract, if then else. You have a couple examples here. So this is like the baby steps of writing code. Read means you have a variable that you're taking in and you're going to read that variable. Compute, if you're calculating something, then you would have the add, subtract, if then. If this person makes over 500K, then this is the tax. So that's one of the branching decisions that we're going to be doing. Here are some examples to help you get situated with the whole pseudocode. So that's also posted. And I'm just going to walk through the pseudocode that I already have here for this question. So we're going to start the process. Once we start, we're going to read 2 values. First one's going to be revenue, second one's going to be expenses. Now we're going to compute. Earnings is going to be revenues minus expenses. Notice how we don't have that whole actual operation in the flowchart. We just say calculate earnings. That's because we're just simplifying in flowchart, but in code we gotta actually compute it. So we're gonna do that here. And then we're gonna have an if statement. If the earnings are less than $500,000, then we're gonna put the taxes as earnings times 20%, else taxes as earning times 30%. And notice also here, we're just putting else instead of, here we would have a yes or no. Here is just if then or else this. So it's either or, so you don't have to write really yes or no. And once you're done with the if statement, always remember to close the if statement, end if, and display the answer, that's the taxes, and stop the whole process. So that's kind of where we're going with the flowcharts and pseudocode. There's a couple more examples that we're gonna do. Next one, so this one is in the style of bullet points, so it's kind of easier to read. They give you some of the shapes that you're going to be doing. So start the process of billing, order burgers and pizzas, calculate the cost, $5 times burgers plus $8 times pizzas. And if the total cost is more than $10, you give a free coupon. And then you display the cost, and then you end the process. Okay, so, actually wait. I'm going to give you a minute to pause and try to do this yourself. Create the flowchart and then create the pseudocode. So for the flowchart, it's going to be the same with the start and the stop. Every flowchart is going to have them. And you're going to read in these values, the burgers and the pizzas. Here you're calculating the total cost. It's a computation. You can see that over here as well. Now you have a decision to make. How much is the total cost? If it's greater than $10, then yes, you give a coupon. And here you could add in a connector because they're both going to go to display total cost. But if it's not greater than $10, you're going to go to straight display total cost and straight stop. And the only difference between the flowchart and pseudocode is that when it comes to computations, you actually have to put in the numbers. Here, they have the numbers, but you can also just say total cost. And you would just use the same keywords that we saw in the reference guide and put that in here, so this should be pretty self-explanatory. Okay, so create the flowchart in pseudocode one more time. A store offers a discount for their silver and gold card members. Those with the gold card obtain a discount of 20%, while silver card holders get a 10% discount. No discount is offered to those who are not card holders. So this one has like a little bit more going on. So the flowchart for this one, you can ignore this membership type one. First, we're going to check what kind of card holder category they have and if they really are a card holder. If they're not a card holder, then they get 0 discount and they go straight to display discount. The discount's going to be 0 and then you just stop. But if they are a gold member, then you get a discount of 20%, connect everything, display discount. But if they're not a gold member, then we're assuming because they have a card but they're not gold member, then they're a silver member. So you go straight to 10% discount and then you end the process. Same thing's happening here, except we have a couple if statements. So once we check the card holder category to be true, like meaning they are a card holder, it exists, then we're going to check if they're a gold member. If that's true, then you compute the discount. But if they're a card holder and they're not a gold member, we're assuming that they're a silver member. And then you get a 10% discount, you end the statement, and this would just be like, if you're not a card holder at all, then you go straight to else and you compute the discount as 0. End if statement, display the discount, stop the whole process. Okay, and that should be it. A couple notes, as I said before, the pseudocode reference sheet is posted in the files. A couple of things you want to keep in mind. All flowchart symbols have 1 arrow in and 1 arrow out, except these 4 things listed. The diamonds has exactly 2 arrows out, the yes or the no. There's no maybe. The start has no arrows in, stop has no arrows out, and the connectors, you can have multiple arrows because you're coming from different places. Okay, and that should be it. I hope this makes sense. Please email me if you have any questions on this or assignments. You do post on Canvas like as a comment next to the assignment. I don't usually get notified, so just email me for that. Anything, basically, email me. And I hope you have a good week and have a good day. Bye.